What's up, everyone? James Gunn's Suicide Squad just released in theaters, so let's review it. Real quick, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below telling me what you thought of Suicide Squad from 2021. And this is going to be a spoiler-free review for the movie. There will be some light spoilers about the kind of opening of the movie, but for the most part, this will be spoiler-free, so you're free to watch it if you haven't seen the movie yet. Anyways, let's get right into the review. So this movie is really, it follows the Suicide Squad as they get sent on a mission to some island to like beat some bad guys by the government, and that's the plot of the Suicide Squad, and that's the plot of this movie here. It's fairly simple. The whole plot in this movie is fairly simple. But overall, I absolutely love this movie from start to finish. This is hands down my favorite movie of the year by a mile. I absolutely adored this movie. It was so entertaining. It was so much fun. It was hilarious. I love all the characters in the movie. James Gunn does such a good job with this movie. First, I think James Gunn just brings his style to this film. And he's known for the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, obviously, and he did a really good job with those. But honestly, I prefer this to Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just, this movie works so well for me with his style and his humor that's very unique, and it just adds this flavor to the movie that's very enjoyable. And what was unexpected about this movie was it was absolutely hilarious. Like, I was literally dying of laughter in the theater. It's not, the humor is not going to be for everyone. It's for a very specific type of audience. It's very dark. It's very kind of like dark comedy type stuff. Like a little spoiler for the opening scene, like the Weasel character, they like drown in the opening scene. I found that absolutely hilarious. Not everyone's gonna find that funny, but it was so funny to me, and James Gunn's humor for me pretty much worked every time in this movie, and it's filled throughout the movie, particularly in the first hour of the movie. It's just humor heavy. In the second half, it's a little more grounded, but regardless, it just worked so well for me. That it definitely made this movie so enjoyable from start to finish. Like I said, James Gunn just brought this flavor to this movie and DC that just really worked, and it made this movie amazing. And another aspect of James Gunn is how he made this movie R-rated. That also just worked very well. There's lots of blood, there's lots of gore. It just doesn't really care about trying to appeal to a certain audience or trying to appeal to younger audiences. It just absolutely goes for it, and that makes it really fun. And it just that works with what James Gunn's trying to do. Those two things go together, the R rating and that. His humor is very dark in this movie. Once again, the action is very gory. We've got a lot of blood in this movie. There's even like nudity in this movie at times. There's just a lot of stuff that is going to get that R rating. That's not going to some people aren't going to like it, but I absolutely loved it. It's absolutely the kind of stuff I love to see in movies, especially a superhero movie where you don't see the R rating that much. Especially in a movie like this, we've seen it in more darker films like Logan and Joker with the R rating, but in this movie where it's absolutely a movie that's supposed to be fun, to see that R rating, I thought it was brilliant, and it just works so well. I think Birds of Prey was also R rated, but anyways, I thought the R rating really enhanced this movie's potential, and it absolutely worked. The cast of this movie is absolutely amazing as well. You have Margot Robbie returning as the main character from the original Suicide Squad debacle. Then you have the addition of Idris Elba and all of like James Gunn's like cast that he always brings to all his movies, and they're all just a lot of fun in this movie. They all have like their unique superpowers that make them really fun. John Cena was a very fun addition to this movie. I thought there's like the shark guy, there's the polka dot guy, and there's just a lot of different characters in this movie with different powers that make this movie feel very flavorful and just are really entertaining to watch throughout the entire movie, and that worked really well for me. Once again, there was like 17 Suicide Squad members. The gimmick throughout the entire movie was who was going to die, and the gimmick going into it was who was going to die, and that made it really entertaining, because it was just fun to see who was going to die and how different characters were going to die, knowing that your protagonist characters were going to die. That made it fun, I thought, and it was a very enjoyable throughout the entire movie, and it just really kept you invested in the plot and what was going on. The plot itself, I thought, could have been a little more in depth. It was very simple. Once again, this movie was character driven. It was about the characters as they were going on this adventure, and it was about James Gunn's style, bringing his humor, his action, his flavor to the movie that made it really good. But the plot itself was a little bare bones. It was a little ridiculous. You get like the whole starfish guy towards the end, so it was a lot of fun, but it definitely could have used a little more development, I thought. And the villains in this movie weren't great. I did enjoy them. Especially like the guy with like the like nails in his head or whatever he had in his head. He was enjoyable, but they didn't really get much development. They were kind of just there to be anti-Suicide Squad in the movie. So they definitely could have been better. I don't think they were bad by any means. I don't think the plot was bad by any means. It just could have been better, I think. But along with just how good this movie was, the action in this movie is really good. There's not like one notable action scene in the movie, but just throughout the action, it's just very enjoyable to watch, especially with James Gunn's the R rating and just the blood and everything. It just makes it very enjoyable. Once again, with all these superpowers that just make it very unique and very fun. So this movie, like I said, was an absolute blast. The characters in this movie blend very well. They all have great chemistry with each other. They are used very effectively. It feels like each character has a moment in this movie. For the most part, some of the characters towards the beginning don't, but it feels like for the most part, every character has a moment in this movie, and you really get to understand each character. Though, you know, going into it super blind, you don't really know who these characters are. You feel like you know them by the end of the movie. And while this certainly does feel like a James Gunn vehicle, written and directed by him, it's, you know, it's his style, it's his humor, it's R-rated. It does fit within the DCEU nicely. It felt like a DC movie. It felt like, you know, with the return of Harley Quinn, obviously the return of a few other characters, it felt like it fits into the DCEU, which will help them in the future in, you know, building off of what this movie did. Whether or not we get a sequel or not, who knows, but I did really enjoy that. And it's just like, this movie for me, it worked in pretty much every regard. It was a perfect, near perfect movie for me. I absolutely loved it. James Gunn is really an amazing director, and he comes in here and just does such a great job, and he just made this movie absolutely brilliant. There's a few negatives that I had and probably will magnify for more people who didn't enjoy the movie as much. First off, it's just not for everyone. The humor is very specific. It's very R-rated. It's very gory. It's very it's not going to be for someone who wants a lighter-hearted movie. It's there's a lot of kind of weird humor moments, like there's animals dying in the movie that people aren't going to like, and there's just it's certainly not going to be for everyone. I saw it with my sister; she didn't like it, so it's definitely, some people are not going to like this movie. So that's going to hurt it. It's going to hurt people's reception of the movie. I thought it was really good. That didn't affect me. Also, I did think the tone of this movie was very weird. It starts very comedic heavy. Like the first 40 minutes to an hour are just like constant jokes. The plot is just filled with jokes. As we go on, the humor becomes less and less relevant as we kind of get more into the plot. So I thought the tone was a little weird in this movie. It wasn't bad. It didn't bug me. It's just something I did notice. Obviously, the plot and the villains I thought were a little bit of an issue. And I think in the middle, it was ever so slightly boring. And I mean ever so slightly, because it wasn't a huge deal. Just towards the beginning, I thought it dragged a little. When we were kind of getting development with the characters, and there wasn't as much going on. It was just kind of, you know, you were hanging out with the characters. They're in like a bar and stuff. I thought it dragged a little, and it just was like ever so slightly boring. Wasn't a huge issue though. I still think this movie was really good. It's everything I love about comic book films, and honestly, this is the most, not only that I've enjoyed a movie that I've seen in theaters in a long time, but the most that I've enjoyed a comic book movie in a very long time. Probably since like, this is probably the most I've liked a comic book movie since Logan, maybe. I'm going back to 2017. I thought this movie was brilliant. I loved it from start to finish. It was very entertaining, very good. I love James Gunn's style here. The R rating enhances the movie so much. The action, the characters, the acting was really good in this movie. You really get to see these actors utilized very well, and that was very good to see in a superhero movie. So not something you always see in superhero movies, but it's very cool to see it in this movie. But I just thought this movie was amazing. Tons of fun, and the relentless R rating just made it so enjoyable. So I'm going to give Suicide Squad from 2021 a 5 out of 5 stars. Yes, a 5-star movie. I think that's my first 5-star movie of 2021, and I'm going to give it a 95%. That's for more critical scale. Anyways, as always, that's going to do it for my review for Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad from 2021. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought of Suicide Squad from 2021. And I'm going to be ranking the DC movies here in a few days, so stay tuned for that. This movie will definitely be ranking high on that. But anyways, as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.